Welcome to my new how-to series. In this series, I will talk about how to grow common vegetables and fruits in your own garden. And I would like to start with one of my favorite vegetables, peas. I love using peas in salads, in stir-fries, in soups, everywhere, and just even snacking on it. Usually when I walk outside in my garden and there's peas growing, I'm always grabbing some and munching on it. So first, let's talk about seed starting. How to plant your peas. Peas is a cool, loving vegetable, which means you can transplant it early in the spring. It can take light frost, and in my area, I can plant my peas outside in early or mid-March. But that means I can start planting it indoors in February or even the end of January. Peas is one of those veggies that you can plant in groups. As you can see here, I planted in groups of 5 seeds, and then you transplant them together as a bunch. It grows fast. In about 2-3 days, you will see first signs of peas sprouting. And after that, it grows so fast. These are the seedlings of about 4 or 5 days. Make sure when it sprouts, you introduce the light, because it will require a lot of light to grow. And these are the seedlings about 1.5 weeks old. I like my seedlings to be 4 to 6 weeks old when I transplant them in the garden. Of course, you can also start your peas with winter sowing, as you can see here on this video. These are peas from last year. They sprouted nicely in the beginning of March, and in mid-March I transplanted them into the garden. When you're transplanting peas, you have to be careful with its root system. It doesn't like to be disturbed a lot, so be gentle. And I usually transplant my peas into the garden together with other cool growing vegetables like broccolis and cabbages and radishes and stuff like that. This is a footage of my garden bed from March 12 of last year, and in few weeks it grew to be so much bigger. Just look at this transformation. Before transplanting your peas, you have to let them harden off. Usually 3-4 days is enough. And around the same time you transplant indoor seedlings into the garden, you can also drop a few seeds as succession planting. This way you will have a continuous harvest all the way until the weather will start getting hot. Usually in my area, that's June. We get 80 degrees in June, and peas doesn't like that kind of temperature. You can of course prolong the season of peas by planting it in the shade, but it will not produce as much as if it was growing in a sunny spot. Last year I discovered a new to me way of growing peas. It's a container growing, and I liked it so much that this year I will be growing peas probably only in containers, because it's such a great way. You can move those pots anywhere in the garden. You can first have them in a sunny spot, and then if the weather gets hot, you move them to the shade. Peas is a climbing vegetable, and you need to provide some sort of a support for it. But if it grows in containers, it just drapes over and it looks beautiful and produces a lot too. This year I am planning to grow peas together with my pansies in the spring. Last year I had some radishes growing together with pansies. I think peas should do well in hanging baskets. It will drape over the railing I have in front of my house, and pansies will just be like a splash of color. You can grow any variety of peas in container, but bush varieties are suited better. They don't grow as big. There are even dwarf varieties of peas. One of them is called Tom Thumb. I believe it's only 8-inch tall, so you can grow it even in the smallest containers you have. Peas are great to grow in the garden since they are nitrogen fixers, similar to beans because they are from the same family. But still you need to fertilize your peas. If you are using compost and every spring applying a new layer, then you can skip on this part. But if you are not using compost, then use organic fertilizer to make sure that your peas is producing enough. And if you haven't tried composting yet, this year would be a great start. Also, make sure to keep your peas well watered, especially during heavy producing season, because if you don't water it enough, the pods will never get mature and they will dry up on the stems. Especially the peas that you're growing in containers. Containers dry up much faster than the in-ground. And if you are growing peas in ground, I would suggest setting up a trellis, some kind of a support, when it's about 1/2 foot tall, because once it gets bigger than that, it requires something to climb on. As you can see over here, in the beginning you may need to help it, but then it will do its job. We've talked about growing bush varieties in hanging baskets, but you can grow climbing varieties in containers as well. As you can see here, I grow climbing peas in big pots, but I make sure to provide trellis for it. So if your pot is large enough, you can install big trellis and have your peas growing in there. Harvesting peas depends on a variety. Those flat pod varieties can be harvested early, but if you are growing shelling peas, you'll have to wait a bit longer. You can always pick one and see if you like the size and the taste of it, and if not, you can wait a little bit longer. Usually in my household, peas doesn't last long. We all love it. But don't worry on planting too much, because if you have extra, you can always shell it and freeze it for later use. This is what I'm planning to do this year, if we, of course, don't eat it all when it's fresh. It's a great spring vegetable to grow. If you haven't tried growing peas yet, give it a try. I'm sure you will love it. Let me know in the comments below what vegetable I should pick as my next how to grow video. Thank you for watching and have a great rest of your day. And I'll see you next time.